Hello and welcome to the Learn How to See Better podcast, the only podcast out there known to actually improve your vision the longer you listen. This is your host, Drew Davis, and I'm glad you've joined me here today. I can't wait to share some great information with you about how to improve your health, wealth, and relationships. So let's get right down to it, shall we? Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Drew, and I want to welcome you back to Learn How to See Better. And in today's episode, I want to talk about vulnerability, and I want to talk about victory. How are the two related? Well, if you think about it, vulnerability seems to sound like a word that indicates some sort of weakness. I'm vulnerable, and that's typically deemed as not a good thing. Most people want to hide their vulnerability, right? Most people don't want to be open to what might be plaguing them, to what struggles they might be having in their life at the moment. And your vulnerability can actually be the gateway to victory. And you might wonder, well, how can that be so? If I'm vulnerable and I don't really want to share this, or I don't really want to be open about struggles I'm facing, how can that help me be led to victory? And I'll tell you a little scenario that applies to the situation. So when it comes to life, when it comes to achieving goals, when it comes to starting out on a new journey in life, regardless of what it is, whether it's in health, fitness, finding spiritual strength, it could be building a business, right? Entering a new chapter in life. And so what we find out is when we're doing something good, or when we're doing something new, we're usually not good at it at first, right? We're not great, we're not good, we're not bad, we're pretty horrific, right? If you were to throw me on a surfboard, I would be pretty horrific. I've never surfed a day in my life, never tried it, never even been on a board, right? So how could I ever be great at that if I'm not good? I have zero skills in surfing, right? So it would be natural to think that I could accelerate my ability to go from horrific to bad to good to great if I were to get a coach or a mentor, or find someone who's been there before that has the skills that I want to have, and reach out to see if they would be willing to pour into me and share with me and coach me and guide me to shortcut that path to reach the objective that we're trying to face, right? So that's all well and good. And I think the piece that has to be acknowledged is the fact that if you're willing to be coached, if you're willing to be coachable, one of the key things is you have to let people in to where you're struggling. Where are you vulnerable? Because it's in that expression, it's in that moment of saying, I'm going to be strong enough to open up and share my weaknesses. That can become the gateway to your victory. Simply because of the fact that once you let that guard down, you allow your peers that you might look up to, you allow your coach, you allow your mentor to be able to pour into you a whole lot more than if you were just like, nah, everything's good with me, I'm fine, I know I can't get up on the surfboard, but I'll be all right, I'll get there, I'll figure it out. Think about that mentality, that attitude. You block support, you're blocking assistance, you're blocking getting the help that you need because you want to keep a poker face. You don't want to show your hand. You're 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and you don't even want to admit to being a mere earthling, only a human, right? And so what I had recently experienced in my life was a case where, like, wow, all of a sudden, if I'm just willing to be a little bit more vulnerable, I might be able to become victorious because I myself participate in coaching programs, right? I receive coaching and guidance on some of the things that I'm doing in business that are new to me, that I want to be able to accelerate the progress of. And to be quite frank, one of the best ways to do that is to get involved in some sort of acceleration program that will help you get on the fast track to reaching your goals. And one of the amazing things about that is you can see that when you start off on the journey, you're essentially not who you need to be to have the things you want to have, right? There's a whole lot of doing. There's a whole lot of becoming that has to take place first. And all the great things you've done to get you to where you are today are just not the things that are going to be required to get you to the next level. Now, some of those existing things may be required, but I mean, no, you have to go and transform. You have to become someone bigger, better, badder, newer, and improved to be able to achieve that new obscure object, that newly defined objective, right? And what's so critical about that is just the recognition that how are you going to really be able to take full advantage of that acceleration path if no one knows that you got one bad wheel on the vehicle. You're in a race car and you got one bad wheel, and you don't tell anyone, hey, I think I got a nail in my tire, so I can't achieve my maximum speed on the racetrack. Well, if you're just trying to mask that pain, if you're trying to hide that ailment, if you're trying to hide that that there's something going on that's in the way or that you're struggling with that's blocking your success, how will someone know to come to you and say, oh, I didn't realize you had a fear of this. I didn't realize you struggled with this. I didn't realize you were having a hard time in these areas. I've actually been where you're at. I could tell you exactly how to get out of that. I can tell you what to do. I've done that 1,000 times. And now I see the light and I know that things can be done differently. So what comes with that is if you are willing to share, okay, I have some things holding me up or holding me back in my business, and you are a part of a supportive group of like-minded individuals that have similar experiences, and some of them may even have more experience or more relevant experience to your situation, you got to open up. You got to bring that guard down. You got to let the group pour into you and show you that love, that care, and that sincere guidance that is going to be able to be leveraged by you to help, get you out of your funk or get you back on track or get you accelerating towards your goals. And that's what I found in a recent coaching call where I had some vulnerabilities about just realistically the progress that I'm making towards my goals. And I was just talking about that in another episode, promote your progress. And that's something I'm trying to get better at. So I want to be able to take my own advice and promote my own progress more. But then there's the flip side of the coin. For those of us that are ambitious, sometimes we can fall into the trap of not feeling like our progress is sufficient. Try that on for size. Any of you ever felt that way out there? Have you felt like you're on the right track and you're moving forward, but you're not moving as fast as you thought you could? Or maybe you haven't gotten as far as that you thought you'd be by now. Maybe you're trying to invest in real estate and you might have paid for, some high quality education, and you're consuming all this new content over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. But you might not be doing deals yet, right? So you might be beating yourself up saying, I've spent, large massive sum of money on my education, but I'm not balling yet. I'm not making money yet. I'm not rich yet. I'm not wealthy yet. It's like, well, we still got to respect the laws of nature and understand that, you can only learn so fast, but more important than the learning of the information is to put the information into application, right? Because without that, you're just going to have frustration. And so many people don't give themselves the proper runway to be able to absorb information, understand it, and then go implement it. And that's where I think sometimes the rub comes from, right? We're all trying to build progress, and sometimes we get down on ourselves because we haven't made the progress in a particular arena that we would have expected of ourselves, right? I've been there. I'll hold myself to high standards on some things, and then if I don't fully execute with the level of perfection that I'm looking for, it can cause a little bit of mental angst. Like, man, I thought I was really going to be able to pull that off, or I thought, I had this accomplishment that I was just going to be able to, do X, Y, or Z. And sometimes when you don't feel that you're making the progress that you thought you would be, you can fall into the trap of beating up on yourself. And there's the old saying that goes, people are always overestimating what they can do, in a month, but underestimate what they can do in a year, or overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in a decade. And that's where we can get hung up with trying to measure our progress based on expectations that might not be real. So, for some of the things I'm doing, pedals to the metal, but I have to make sure I've got that proper regulation of work-life balance, right? Balance in the family and the business. And so there's times where I want to be in go mode and just push, push, push. But there's also the part of me that recognizes that I need to carve out, those key moments to spend with my family and be fully present. So it's balancing that ambition. And I feel that my goal and my intent to develop and create that right level of balance sometimes causes internal conflict. Sometimes it makes me feel like, man, I'm not making the progress towards these goals that I set for myself. And it's not that the goals are bad, and it's not that, that I'm spending my time the appropriate way is bad, because I've got it at my core to keep a good balance between work, business, and life and family. And so as you look at that, it's key to understand that some of those frustrations that come from a perceived lack of progress, it'd be real easy to just, put my game face on and be like, yep, everything's all good. Everything's just going A plus. Everything's on track, moving at the speed I want, and not be willing to say that, man, I am taking positive action towards my goals, but you know what? I'm struggling a little bit in this arena. I'm struggling to get it all done. I'm struggling to, keep that balance, right? I'm struggling to fight the feelings of, I need to get this business project done that we're really excited about and working on versus, reading a book at bedtime. And hey, don't judge. Sometimes these are just feelings that come up that are based on our entrepreneurial ambition, but sometimes you have to reel that back and keep it in check when it's like, well, hey, family first. So, keep your priorities in the right order. And so that's one area that I think that when we overestimate what we can do on the business side, but don't take that appropriate time to calculate and factor in QT with the family, strictly from a progress standpoint, sometimes we might feel like we're not doing as good, or that we're not, that we're just not making it happen like we're supposed to. And that's where I think the vulnerability can be useful when sharing that with the group, because maybe you're in a group of other entrepreneurs. In my case, you're associated with a group of entrepreneurs. Maybe some of those other entrepreneurs have a family. They have children. Maybe their children are older than yours, and they can say, hey, you know what? Don't even worry about that, because, maybe you feel that way when they're young, but then they get a couple years older and then they're having sleepovers at the friend's house. They don't want to hang out with mom and dad anymore. And then you got, all the time in the world. It's like, okay, well, that might make sense. But instances where the kids are young, the kids are at home, and you're trying to get some specific goals accomplished now, there can be a little bit of contention there. And so one of the things I was able to do in a recent, team coaching session was just kind of admit that I was having feelings of maybe not inadequacy, but feelings of slight disappointment with some of the specific objectives that I've set or that we've set for ourselves in business. Sometimes those goals are lofty and they can be a little bit tricky when you're trying to pursue those, if you find that, well, maybe I didn't all the way properly estimate how much time the business side would take, or that I needed to actually make these adjustments on the family side to make sure I'm getting even more time and make the business time more efficient, because it doesn't always have to be, it's like you could swap out business and say job, and then you're trying to justify just working for Mr. Charlie a little bit longer. And that's not the intent. But what my experience was today, actually, by kind of sharing with some of my tribe, some of the challenges that I face to keep my ambition in check. It was very beneficial for me to have some of my peers, kind of pouring into me, helping me to understand that, this sort of thing is something that we all go through. And the biggest thing is the function and factor of just making sure that we keep everything on the right track. And it's like, you don't want to get too high. You don't want to keep too low. Emotionally, you want to make sure that you're managing to find a way to be fairly even keel, because the world of the entrepreneur can be a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. And it was just good to have a group pour back into me and help me to keep things in the right perspective and remind me that when you're constantly making progress forward towards your goals, that is what, a lot of success is. It's not necessarily the achievement of the worthy objective. It's the pursuit of achievement of the worthy objective that makes you successful. You know, you're successful as long as you haven't quit on the thing that you're going after. You're being successful in the pursuit of things. And so to get grounded and to have that reconnect with a peer group that can help you see things in the proper perspective can be a very useful experience. And I was able to get a little bit in that today at a moment where I was thinking about some of the good stuff I'm doing. And I've got a great little list of wins this year. And even in the midst of reducing the scope of all that we're trying to accomplish because we're, got a little family we're getting started, and there's, that's a big time in our life that we want to make sure that we respect and keep at the forefront of our minds. But we're still goal setters, and we're still, looking to grow and develop and to be the best version of ourselves that we possibly can. So there is that constant fire under the rear to rise to the occasion and rise and develop to the point that I reach my full objective. And I think that, to be honest with you, without being able to open myself up and be vulnerable, if I'm not willing to do that, then I'm essentially not willing to receive the guidance and coaching that I need that will help me level up in the areas of my life that I'm looking to have additional success. So I wanted to make sure that that the idea of vulnerability as a gateway to victory isn't downplayed or just poo-pooed like, yeah, being vulnerable. So just show all your soft, warm center and the fact that, that you're just, the bowl of emotional jello and, you don't have any real ability to, kind of harden up and stay focused on just head down, push forward, and never let them see you sweat, right? Nah, sometimes you have to go ahead and open up, let your guard down, be vulnerable, and let your support team see where you're at. What are you actually struggling with? What are the sticking points? Because once that visibility is brought out, once that visibility is there into your world of struggles, then that support group can just really be able to apply their experiences and their successes and be able to pour into me and help me to look past some of the obstacles that I may be seeing based on my point of view, perspective, and position in my life currently. So that was a piece I wanted to get out there for everybody today, to be vulnerable, to be open, because your vulnerability can be the pathway or the gateway to you being victorious. So most people wouldn't put those two words together, vulnerability and victory, but just imagine if, when you look at the idea of being vulnerable, if all it did was help you to unlock the secrets that someone else is going to provide you with because you let it be known that you had a need in that specific area. What would that be worth to you? What would that feel like, knowing that all you had to do is get out of your own way and not, be so, prideful or protective or putting on this facade of perfection, and just open up and let the people close to you peek behind the curtain, see what's really going on. Show them, the dark corners where the light needs to be shown in, right, to make the darkness go away. So I hope that all of you out there can find a way to, whether with some sort of loved one or someone in a support group that cares about you and has similar interests, be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to ask for some help, because the fact of the matter is, all these billions of people on the planet, there are billions and trillions and quadrillions of experiences that we all have, and some of those we don't necessarily have to go through ourselves to receive the benefit of the lesson or the moral of the story. So I thought that I'd share some of that with you, because the idea of being vulnerable, especially for your typical guy, it's like, poo-poo on all that idea. I never want to let them see me sweat. Never let them see you hurt. Well, that might be cool on the football field, but, sometimes in life you do need to open up, because you can look at the mind as a closed fist. Just go ahead and take your left hand right now and just make a fist and just stare at it, right? Look at it. That closed fist, assume that's your mind. A closed mind is like a closed hand. It can't give or receive. We must open up. We must open up and become vulnerable to allow receipt of the gifts that are waiting for us. So what are you going to do out there? Everyone in podcast land, what are you going to be willing to do to show and share your vulnerability? Are you open? Are you willing? Are you able? Are you going to share your vulnerabilities? Are you going to see if, by being vulnerable around people that care about you, love you, and support you, are you willing to test this theory and see if they might be able to pour into you a little bit of value that you can take forth and pursue victory with? That's my call to action and my challenge. It's not easy for us to, everybody wants to share their highlights. Everyone wants to share their wins. I'm a big proponent and a supporter of that. But there are instances where we're dealing with the other side of the coin, right? The lows, the dips, the dark side of the moon, so to speak. And be open, be vulnerable, recognize if you have a support structure that you can lean on that support structure to help carry you when you're going through a tough time. And I think there's so much immense value in being able to have that. So if you don't have it, go seek it. You probably don't want to be too vulnerable around your hecklers or the haters, right? That's not going to be a good way to promote you up to victory. But find that safe haven of like-minded individuals that love you, know you, and will support you because they can help you slay that your feelings of inadequacy that may come with being open and being vulnerable. Remember, it could be your pathway to victory. So hopefully that benefits somebody out there. And if not you directly, maybe you have a loved one or a friend that you could point them to this episode and have them listen in. Have them see if they could take a few nuggets away from it, because you might be able to be the gateway to someone else's victory. Thank you guys all for your time today. I appreciate your attentiveness and can't wait to see you on a future episode. Have a good one.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.